Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Dearest Mother and Dad. Love, Ruth, John, Mark, and Pamela. Ruth Smallshaw Ray's letters to her parents. 1956, Part 98. 602 Huntmere Drive, Bay Village, Ohio. February 20th, 1956. Dear Mother, thanks for the second Valentine box that came today for Pamela. The pants are so cute and useful, and the other Valentines so cute too. Pamela took hers to bed with her. Some gal. Actually, she's getting near to being toilet trained, only wet once today, the rest on the toilet. Two BMs, too, so I'm glad. We'd better, since Carol is getting Lisa trained and she's 11 months younger. I still think it's best to wait until they're ready themselves. She told me today when she wet and said, "Oh, wet, Mommy." Say, do you have my brown gloves? It's okay if you do, then I'll stop looking and get some more. I do remember giving you some outdoors one day, but then maybe I've misplaced mine. Last week, Pamela and Mark were playing outdoors. She gets so muddy I doubt if the snowsuit will ever get clean. I wash it every night. Just finished now and the knees are still dirty. Anyway, I was vacuuming and thought I heard a cry, but sounded far away and not like my howlers. I went out to empty the vacuum and Mark and Jay were playing on Gallagher's barbecue pit. I asked Mark where Pamela was, and he said, "She got lost down by the train." Well, I called and looked around, not too worried. Then I heard a whimpering like a little cat, but couldn't find Pamela. Then I looked in the garage, and what a sight! It was so funny and nearly tragic I almost laughed and cried at the same time. For there sat Pamela. She'd climbed into the stroller and the swing set, car seat on bars, had fallen down over her, and she'd managed to poke her head up through one of the leg holes, nearly strangling her. She sure gets into some near misses. She's beyond me. Pamela bit me on the arm tonight and broke the skin. Last week she bit Mark on the chin and made it bleed. Still has scabs on it. Good night and thanks. Love, Ruth. 602 Huntmere Drive, Bay Village, Ohio, March 7th, 1956. Dear Mother and Dad, how happy we are to hear about Doris expecting a baby. I can imagine they're both thrilled and so good that Bud passed his exams now that they're having a family and a new house too. That's nice, and we're anxious to hear what it's like. Uncle Bud will be a daddy now too. The Duffs just had their fourth boy today, Vincent. Michael is 4, Paul 3, and Andrew 1. Mark wants a new baby so badly too. Everyone he knows has a new baby. He told a neighbor that, "My mommy is going to start a baby pretty soon." He even put the panda in Pamela's crib and tells me to be quiet 'cause the baby's sleeping. He's acting so grown up it's hard to believe. When you were here, Mark and Pam were rivals, but now they seem like real pals. Mark helps Pamela out of bed, and John says yesterday she took his hand, Mark's, and they went hand in hand into the living room. Today she fell and went to Mark. He kissed her head and she lay down, and he covered her with a doll's blanket and then lay down beside her. Yesterday he threw a stone in the air and it accidentally hit my neck. Pamela went over and patted him as if to spank him. The other day Mark was yelling out the door, "Hey God!" looking up in the sky. "Hey God, thank you for everything." He's going to Johnny's 4th birthday Sunday and is looking forward to seeing all his old pals. He packed his grip last week and was going to move to Avon Lake, where Candy and Cookie, Ruthie, and Eileen moved. Thank you for the coloring books. Mark's had a great time looking at them. The folks were over Sunday. They'd spent the weekend at Ted Zook's and had been to the flower show. I had to leave while they were here, for I had to work in the J.C. booth selling flags at the flower show. I helped the diabetic booth in with the J.C.'s too. They have this dry pack test. Have you taken it? I asked about Fern and David, and they say that one of your parents must have passed it down or been prone to diabetes. I've been so guilty about not writing to Norma, and oh, so many letters, but did get away a little Valentine box of candy to her. I must try to remember her birthday. I'm sorry she hasn't been well. How about you? Are you still going to have an operation? Have the exercises helped? We had 66 degrees weather yesterday, but a rainstorm last night and today. It sure smells like spring in the air. I brought some forsythia branches in last week and now have lovely yellow branches in bloom. Mrs. Gallagher's narcissus are all budding now. I got the 2 back bedrooms house cleaned, and John is painting our room gold. I cleaned the kitchen cupboards. We got the washing machine fixed, $14. The fellow said I used it more than average. Pamela has almost all her BMs on the toilet, but still wets. She's talking more, but not as clearly as Mark did, except, "No." She's the most independent child you could imagine. All those hairs on her knees went away, thank heavens. Hope they don't return. We've, one or other or both of us, have been out almost every night for about 3 weeks. It's exhausting. Don't bother getting another lunchbox. Pamela has her little grip. Mark and Pam have fun with everything around the house. The trouble is that Pamela climbs on the stools and gets butcher knives, anything she can find. I can't trust her out of my sight except upstairs, and I've sure been grateful for that, 'cause they have such a good time. I'll probably always have a sore throat. John was sick a week or so ago. He had the flu and went to my throat doctor. John told him I still had itching ears too. He said it's the same thing as my throat, an allergy of some kind. Someday I guess I'll go to another allergist and track it down, but $550 for medical bills last year has stopped me for now. We haven't new neighbors yet, but Patty thought they had a 3-year-old boy. Hope so. Mark and Jay and Pamela have so much fun out back, and Mark is so good taking Pamela for walks in her stroller or pulling her in the wagon when he's riding the bike. He told me Pamela was getting so fat we'd have to get her a new wagon, 'cause she doesn't fit in it anymore. Today he told me he just had to jump on the bed, because when he jumped on the mattress, it just doesn't work and it hurts my feet. But when he jumps on the bed, it works. He is so capable, and I sometimes think he thinks he runs the house. He does dishes, he can dress and undress himself. He makes puddings and jello and is always telling me things we should do. I wore a dress yesterday, and he told me to take it off and wear it on Sunday. "You should wear your pants today so you can work." Entirely his own idea. They're thinking of passing an ordinance requiring everyone to shovel their walks so children can walk to school. Carol and Dave decided they couldn't afford the house. She is doing typing at home to make extra money. Yes, Pamela still bites. She knows it's wrong, so sometimes when her teeth bother her, she just got 3 more and is on a 4th one. She has almost all now. She'll bite her own hand. I'm area chairman for the Cripple Drive and don't have all my workers yet. Also got to get my junior women's book finished, artwork and photos. The contest closes April 18th. We're going to a convention in Toledo, Ohio in 2 weeks. I went to bridge last night and it felt strange not to be carrying paper and books to a meeting. I've been driving a lot downtown last weekend. We got safety belts for the car at Christmas time. John is in the middle of a very complicated case. Some things that go on are fantastic, and I do hope he can help the poor fellow. Business transactions involving real estate and loans. Good night. Love, John, Ruth, Mark, and Pamela. 602 Huntmere Drive, Bay Village, Ohio, April 10th, 1956. Dear Mother and Dad, this past 6 weeks or so has been a dream or nightmare of activity. John says I've been in a cocoon, eating, sleeping, and working on the book I mentioned to you. We finally got it mailed. We've had a series of meetings and parties and spent a weekend in Toledo, a state meeting, and Easter weekend in Sandusky, and are going to Marion, Ohio in 2 weeks. We collected over $2,000 in Bay Village for the crippled children, and I received a nice thank you note for being area chairman. John got a nice note from a man who'd been given John's blood. Thank you for the kiddies' Easter eggs. They arrived last Saturday in good condition. What is the date of your Mother's Day? With your church day being different and the U.S. day different, it's very confusing. You should warn us of the church day if that's the one you celebrate. Pamela is just as cute as Christmas, so full of life and getting prettier by the day. Her eyes are straighter, almost if not perfect, and cheeks so rosy. I cut her hair and it's come in much thicker. She has about 40 words and is really one of the boys. She's very sharp and quick about doing things. She'll put away the Tinker toys while Mark thinks about it. You could just eat her up. I'd say she's at the cutest age now. Mark was at about 17 months. Mark went to church on Easter with John and me. John's a husband in a billion and I'm nuts. Pamela almost got hit by a car the other day. A neighbor phoned to say the kids were in the road, and I dashed out as a car came to a stop by Pamela toddling down the road. An older girl had called them across the street to see worms, and Mark knows it's forbidden territory and had gone, and Pamela toddled after. The daffodils are in bloom next door, and our dwarf iris are in bloom. We keep getting cold days in with the warm ones, so that today Mark is croupy, the first day since October. I have the steamer going, so hope to nip it. The children are out with kites, and the house is getting sandy from the sand pile, so it's spring. Mark likes his white jacket you gave him. It's midnight, and I'm exhausted, so good night, and we'll try to write longer, sooner, and more coherent. Love, John, Ruth, Mark, and Pamela. P.S. Pamela at 21 months age can say, Cookie, Daddy, Mommy, bye-bye, no, yes, wa for water, ma for Mark, mi for milk, so for shoe, I, co for coat, cow, wow wow, car, yeah, caw for crow, thumb, ball, ow, boom, toe, burr for bird, baby, di for dick, up, co for cold, dog, night, pretty, dirty, maybe a few more. As you can see, Mark was the talker and Pamela the doer, just like Mommy the talker and Daddy the doer. She says more, but only Mark can interpret. He taught her yeah, and pretty. 602 Huntmere Drive, Bay Village, Ohio, April 23rd, 1956. Dear Mother and Dad, I was glad to get your letter today, although I knew you'd had a busy schedule planned. I'm sure you enjoyed having Grandpa with you. It's good he got to see Bud and Doris's new home. It sounds wonderful, and I'm anxious to hear more about it. Doris has certainly planned well for them, and you couldn't get one as nice as that here for that price. We've had quite a time here, for Mark's croup was pneumonia. Poor little guy. He virtually coughed himself away at times, almost steadily for 3 or 4 nights. Pamela also got the virus, and John did too, and I did near the end, but mostly tired from so many nights up. Dr. Nitch started Mark on daily shots of penicillin, then more penicillin capsules. Pamela too, but it didn't help, so they took Mark in for x-rays and a blood count and found it was a virus pneumonia that doesn't react to penicillin, so switched him to panmycin, Pamela too, and they started to improve and are now virtually over it except for occasional coughing. The doctor said she would put him in the hospital if we wanted to, but thought I could care for him here. We put a tent over the bed so he could breathe the steam and borrowed a steamer for Pamela. The drugs and x-rays and doctor's shots came to about $100, but I was so glad we do have the modern drugs. The doctor says they're miracle drugs, but don't act overnight, as it was about 12 days, and they still can't go out until the end of the week or so. Poor Mark is thin as a rail, just couldn't eat a thing. He seemed to grow taller, too. Actually, he was good, but Pamela was very hard to control. They sure kept me hopping. John's mother phoned Tuesday to see how we were. John hadn't wanted to worry anyone, so when she found out, she came over Tuesday night, Wednesday, and left Thursday morning, so I got rest then, although the worst was over. John helped me get some rest this weekend and still a little tired. We had to cancel 2 weekends, and I had meetings every night last week to cancel. Good. Tonight, too. They are reorganizing our women's group at church into one large one, over 300 women, and asked me to be the vice president and program chairman. Plan programs for all next year. I turned it down. They called me in the middle of Mark's pneumonia, so didn't feel up to it. It would be interesting, though. John's birthday is May 19th. We'll let you know how we are. Love, John, Ruth, Mark, and Pamela. P.S. I'd like the newspaper clippings back. When Mark was very sick, I kissed him and said he was the best boy in the world. He said, "That's what my Grandma Smallshaw from Canada said." I put Great-Grandma Smallshaw's patchwork quilt over him, and he said, "That's the most beautiful blanket I ever saw. Look at all those pretty flowers." I said to John, I wish she could have heard that. John said, "Maybe she did." Later I found Mark after his nap down at the foot of the bed examining some of the flowers. Valentine flowers. To be continued. Now Ruth included a newspaper article for her mother, which reads this, quote, "J.C. Auxiliary ready to be hostess. Mrs. John S. Ray of the Cleveland J.C. Auxiliary is chairman of the program of events Saturday and Sunday for the J.C. wives, who will accompany their husbands to the Ohio Junior Chamber of Commerce meeting in Cleveland. President of the group, Mrs. William H. Johnson, will join Mrs. C. Robert Kane, wife of the state president, Mrs. Robert Chenault, wife of the national director, and Mrs. Paul Hovey, president of the Elyria Auxiliary, in pouring at the tea and style show Saturday at 3 o'clock at the Higbee Lounge. After the party, the guests will view the J.C. Art Show at the May Company. Other plans made by the Cleveland Auxiliary for the visiting wives include Paige Palmer's presentation of Forever Young, Saturday evening at the Major Hotel, and later a dance in the ballroom of the same hotel. A Sunday morning brunch will be followed by a talk on the power of volunteer service by Bill Grieve, Cleveland Director of Health and Welfare, and an exchange of volunteer service ideas among the local groups represented. Later, the 250 women will join their husbands at a banquet in the manger and wind up by watching a football game. Now, Ruth also included in one of her letters to her mother a program from Trinity Church in Toledo, Ohio. And there's this is part of in the church bulletin. Jesus and surpluses. At this season of the year, about 5,000 persons followed Jesus into Tiberias, where they listened to him. The people became hungry. There was a boy on hand with 5 small barley loaves and 2 fish. From this small beginning, Jesus secured so much food that not only were all the people fed, but they filled 12 baskets with pieces of the 5 barley loaves that were left after the people had eaten. Commenting on this passage from John 6, 1-13, Rufus Jones, a Quaker mystic and philosopher, says, "It is one of the most unique characteristics of Jesus Christ to produce an unexpected surplus. He was always doing the unexpected, the surprising thing, going beyond the usual, the ordinary, flinging in an overplus. The second mile is a striking illustration of the principle. This spirit of lavishness is one of the most obvious things about Christ. He is always lavish. He gives you more than you expect, more than you ask for. That is what we mean by grace. It is the unexpected, the uncalculating feature of love. It pours itself out with any limit. It gives you more than legal good measure. It overfloods. It is pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It comes flooding in like the tide in the Bay of Fundy, Canada. You expect 15 feet and you get 60 feet. Suppose that you entered into the worship in Passion and Holy Week with the same eager spirit which characterized the 5,000 ordinary, garden-variety sort of people who heard Jesus so long ago. It would prove Trinity's most wonderful experience and your greatest blessing. Isn't it worth trying? Can you possibly make a wiser and more important investment of your time than coming to seek the food which Christ offers?" Now, there is one comment based on the original publication from Tessa J. Dolina, the former secretary of Restless Educational Center in San Juan, Metro Manila, Philippines. "Dear Mr. Ray, greetings once again to you and your family. I just finished reading SFMC number 42, and may I say that this issue is even more nicer than number 41. In 42, Ruth was able to capture those moments when Mark appeared to be so adorable and funny. Also, while reading Ruth's letters to her mom, there were lots of lines and quotations she wrote, which are worth mentioning and very meaningful to me. At this point, allow me to pay tribute to your mom, her grandmother, to your wife Alice, and to all the mothers in the world. Happy Mother's Day to all of them on May 14th, 2000. I picked out some lines in Ruth's letters, and I would like to dedicate these to all the mothers. Here goes. I always think of her the way she was when we were young, and she was so energetic, and it's hard to think of her any other way. Can be found also in editor's notes. How lucky we were to have you with us. We really need to have you in our lives more often. Much love from a family that seems to have needed your loving. Boy, have you got a good reputation. Get Ruth Ray and all the mothers to do it. She's a good worker. When the children are sick, I devote my full time to them, and of course they love that. I did read the marriage questionnaire and were happily married. I told John how nice it was that he kissed you goodbye, and he said, "It was my pleasure." He rarely kisses his own mother, so you see it was meant. Joan said how nice you are. Also, may I include the following quotes and lines which I gathered from this issue which had an impact on me. If you do fly out, you must call up Bonnie. Her last letter was a little depressed, and she says they're quite near Moulton Airport in Toronto. Maybe if you had a few hours you could see her. Maybe it's our age 30. Age 30 is certainly a depressing time. The thing we need most is sleep, and it's free except for the time to do the things you should get done. That's what distance does. You don't see people, yet time passes, and distance means years. I understand what it means more now when they used to talk in school of late years, and that distance is time in outer space. It is in our lives, too. When I do have a free evening, such as now, I hardly know where to begin. Phone calls, letters, posters. The funny part of it is that life seems so short, and there's so very many interesting things to do, and yet we have to spend so many hours and so much of our lives on the uninteresting things, or do we have to? Sometimes I wonder if we do have to adjust to it. Having children is so wonderful and creative, yet it takes all the creative spirit out of one, so that there seems so little time and energy left to complete our lives. I wish I knew how or what I should do to change it to make it better. I really enjoyed reading this particular issue. Until your next issue, sincerely yours, Tessa J. Dolina, Quezon City, Philippines.
Well, that concludes today's presentation. You might consider good luck to you with your efforts in family history if this interests you, finding, preserving, and sharing old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they're alive. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. So far, we've made 653 history videos in 7 areas: world history, American history, book reviews, poetic tours, Cleveland baseball, family history, and autobiography. There's a donate feature. You might consider, making a donation so that we can continue making these videos. You also might consider checking out our podcast, Adventures in History, at anchor-fm/Peter-Ray. If you live in Metro Manila, Philippines, and are looking for a high school, you might consider Res Celeste Educational Center, located in San Juan, Metro Manila, Philippines. At Res Celeste, we specialize in helping young people who have had difficulty in the larger traditional high schools. We try to be innovative and creative, and it's more than a school. It's a warm, supportive community and really a family-type environment. And the website is resceleste.education, RESALEST. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.